This is the Bloodhound SSC cockpit, my 1,000 mph office. This has literally been moulded around me and is just big enough to take the screens, the controls and the seat that will both protect me and allow me to control the world's fastest car. The steering wheel has been printed from powdered titanium, so there is a zero waste printed steering wheel which has been made to exactly the profile of my hands. On that I have the control buttons for the parachutes, air brakes and also for the rocket with the 2 trigger switches. That'll control the car underneath my feet, the right hand pedal for the throttle for the jet engine, left hand for the wheel brakes. The centre screen gives me performance and particularly a lot of information on the speedometer. Not only the inset power from the jet engine and the rocket, but critically when I need to put the rockets in and what peak speed we're going to, and then slowing down when I put out the air brakes or when I put out the parachutes, depending on what we're using, and when I put in the wheel brakes. Because the speeds for each of those is absolutely critical. Too fast for the parachutes, they will tear off. Too slow for the parachutes, we're going off the end of the desert. And going cross country at 300 or 400 miles an hour in this car is not a good idea. And the worst case, if that instrument stops working, if the screen physically goes dead for some reason, then the Rolex speedometer below it and to the left gives me an exact copy, fully reliable with its own GPS and its own power system, so that whatever happens, I can stop this car safely from any speed, regardless of any other failures. Right alongside the speedometer, the other critical thing for this car is the wheel loads. We have spent over 5 years developing the aerodynamic model to keep the car on the ground at all speeds, so that we don't generate any lift, and equally important, we don't generate any download. Every single test run we do will be increasing the speed, and I will be checking at every stage the downloads on the wheels. If they're getting too low, we will abort. If they're getting too high and overloading suspension, we will abort. So while I'm watching the speed critically, I'm watching those wheel downloads right next to it all the time. Everything else is very much status and will only become of interest if we start to see these orange and red colours flashing up with problems. Right hand is all the power systems, engine cooling, etc. All of the switches to control the jet engine, the rocket motor and the race car engine that powers the rocket motor. The left hand side is the electrics, hydraulics, etc. with the switches to control them below that. And on the other side, the Rolex chronograph, which gives me precise timings for jet engine startup, cool down, anything else I need during the profile. Everything in the cockpit is controlled with electric buttons and switches, so everything is right there at my fingertips. But if something goes wrong, if we have a power failure or an electronic problem of some sort, then I have backups for the safety critical systems. Specifically, on the right hand side here, I've got a lever that will physically, mechanically shut off the fuel supply to the jet engine. And on the left hand side, I've got 2 levers which will actually pull cables that go all the way to the back of the car, and they will physically pull a pin from the parachute mechanism and deploy the parachutes, so we can get to 1,000 miles an hour and stop the car safely, whatever happens. Sitting here in the cockpit, there's going to be a lot going on. There's a 400 mile an hour deceleration going on over here, so huge shock waves, an incredible amount of noise and energy directly above my head. It's also going to be hot because it's a sealed cockpit, we're in the desert, and there's the G-forces, accelerating at 2G, decelerating at 3G. That's losing 60 miles an hour per second. So it is going to be very noisy, very hot, very uncomfortable, and physically demanding. And at the same time, I'm monitoring all of the instruments in here, using the controls to control the car very precisely, very accurately, to make sure we get up to exactly the test speed on each day, and ultimately to 1,000 miles an hour, and then stopping again safely.